Well, hey there, it's Elka, and welcome to another episode of the Creative and Ambitious Entrepreneur Podcast. And I'm flying solo again today because unfortunately Jen's allergies are just a little bit too much, and I have to do these recordings so that you can have another podcast to listen to. So thanks for your patience with poor Jen. And once the season is over, she'll be back on board. But in the meantime, unfortunately, a couple of these episodes are going to be without her. All right, so let's get diving into this week's episode. It's called Three Things That You Can Do Before, you must do actually, before opening up your Zazzle store. It's been something that people have really had a lot of interest around, and so we thought we're listening to our viewers and we're listening to our listeners, and so therefore we're going to do this episode. And you'll be surprised as to what it is that you need to do before opening your first Zazzle store. And obviously, if you've already opened up a Zazzle store, then you are going to go like, oh shoot, I should have done this beforehand. But it's okay. You can still fix it even after you've opened up your first Zazzle store. You can always open up another one, or you can fix the one that you've already opened, and it'll help set the course for a more successful Zazzle journey to success compared to where maybe you are right now, especially if you're having trouble and you're not making the money that you want to make. So let's backtrack just for a minute. I know that in the introduction we talk about who we are and what we've done, but I just wanted to let you know that as of the time of this recording, we have continued to make money on the Zazzle platform as all the way through COVID, and it's still going on in COVID. Like in Canada where we are, there's still COVID restrictions. We're getting higher cases, and we are just so blessed and fortunate that the Zazzle platform that we built our businesses on way back when they first started, and we started in 2007, 2008, and we have been there on that platform consistently. Some places where you might think, oh, I'm going to start an online business on Amazon or Etsy or Redbubble or Society6 or Spoonflower or Teespring, you name them, or do Shopify, whatever you want. Those online businesses have changed so much. The structures have changed. The way that you can make money or how much money you can make has actually probably changed to the point where it's frustrating. Whereas on the Zazzle platform, it's becoming easier and easier because, first of all, we do training and we do coaching. So we just don't hold back in terms of what we teach you from what we have learned in our success journey on Zazzle, so that you can, do better than we did when we first started. It took us 14 years to make 1.5 million combined, whereas some of our clients are now already catching up to us in terms of how much they're making, and combined, our clients have hit over $6 million in Zazzle sales, which is awesome. It means that they're getting close to that $1 million mark combined for their own earnings. And we're so excited, and we want you to be successful. And that's really important to us. And that's why we've done this in the first place, because we didn't need to. We could just have been Zazzle designers that kept going and kept all our secrets to ourselves, but we didn't. And so here, as you're listening to this and you're a newbie and you're just starting out on the Zazzle platform, we want to make it as easy as possible for you. Avoid those things that we found were hurdles and kept us back from being successful when we first started. And so I just want to let you know that we're pouring our hearts out here. We're making sure that you start on the right foot, and that you make sure that you can be as successful as possible, as quickly as possible. Now, obviously, if you want to learn more, there's a coaching program, there's a training courses. At least join our Creative and Ambitious Entrepreneur Facebook group so that you can be in the know when we do these free trainings and things. But here in this podcast, we're going to give you 3 things, very specific things that you have to do before you start your Zazzle store. And as I mentioned before, if you've already started it and now you realize, oh shoot, I should have done that, then you can either start a new store, but sometimes that's not the best strategy. Obviously, we could help you with that in terms of letting you know which way you should go. But the other option is to fix your store that you already started. It's never too late. Okay, so let's get started with 3 things to do before opening your Zazzle store. Either way, whether you're a brand new or already a seasoned Zazzle designer, you're going to get a lot of value out of this podcast. So let's get going. All right. So as of last year, which is 2020, we have some stats for you because we're going to get into some numbers today, just so that you can really understand the full scope of what Zazzle's all about and how any online business at this point that's an e-commerce business would be a really wise choice for you to start a business rather than starting with brick and mortar or a franchise or, starting from scratch and just figuring out what you want to do. Why don't you hop on this e-commerce online business bandwagon and get started as soon as possible, because right now it's just thriving. When Jen and I started back in 2008, it was hard. People were still not even trusting of the internet, and they definitely didn't want to give up their credit cards or think that they're even going to get the merchandise that they bought online. Whereas nowadays, it's just something you do, right? You just give out your credit card freely. You've got a ton of sites that you're, bookmarked on your computer or on your phone, and you go routinely to shop on them. Well, welcome to the e-commerce revolution. And so therefore, having then the opportunity to use the Zazzle platform to actually make money using this and riding this e-commerce revolution is a fabulous thing, because it's basically a business in a box, right? Zazzle does so much for you compared to Amazon and Shopify and Etsy, and so you're all set to go. The problem though is that we all think it's so easy, we can just do it. And also the store, it's like opening up an account and setting up a store is free, and so everyone just thinks, oh, well, that's if it's that easy, it should be easy for me just to put up some products and then I'll start selling. And this is where people get disappointed and frustrated, because they try on their own and then they don't have that success that they're expecting. And so that's why we even started doing all of the coaching and training, because there's a lot more to this. You're starting an online business and you have really high expectations for earning in the really nice figures, right? You want to make 5 figures and 6 figures. You don't just want to make a couple of dollars every so often. And that's the first thing that everyone searches when they check on the Zazzle, like check out Zazzle on Google. How much money can you make on Zazzle? They type it in and then they go, then you get all these people that go, oh, well, I'm just lucky and I think it's a good thing, but I'm making about, a couple $100 a month. And then there's others that go like, it doesn't work. That's, it's a scam. And it's like, oh my gosh, like why is that out there more than the people that actually are successful? Why? Because a lot of people keep it to themselves as to how much they're making. But on the other hand, there's people like myself and Jennifer that say, hey, guess what? This is a viable business opportunity. So let's just start right and actually treat it like a business and get going and do those things you need to do to actually see those numbers coming in terms of the sales. All right. So guess what? 1.8 billion or 1.79 billion shopped online last year. And so they bought something online last year. Holy smokes. There's about 7 to 8 billion people in the world, and almost 2 billion bought something online. So if you haven't yet figured out that this is a good business opportunity, definitely this is the way to go. All right. Then 48% of those consumers were actually female. So this is something that I want to bring up right away, because the women like to shop. And actually, I was surprised that it was only 48%. I thought it might be even more. But maybe there's 2 or 3% that go like, nope, gender neutral, all that stuff. But the key here is that women shop, mainly more so than men. And especially for things that are on the Zazzle platform. And so when you have your store and you start your store and you start thinking about what you want to do and how you want to approach the customer and so on, and how you want to position your store, keep that in mind, that really we're dealing with the woman shopper. And the men who shop there are also obviously interested, but they're not as active in that space. And so it's really important for you to understand that we're targeting women when we're selling on the Zazzle platform. Okay, and so the other thing that's really, really important is that, and I'm looking at my notes just to make sure I didn't miss any stats here, it's a really great thing for you to know some more numbers. And so that's our first point, is that you have to do more research, not just the fact that great, it's a big business and I should get in on it, right? And that I need to target women for the most part. That's the overall encompassing idea, but now let's move into some details, and that is the first thing that you have to do. So you have to target, and you have to do more research and figure out what you're dealing with, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at I've got some numbers ready for you, and I'm going to give you the links in the show notes as to where I found them, okay? So you can look them up and you can see more information and so on. All right, so the first thing is that on average, Zazzle has about 16 million views per month to the site, which is awesome, right? I mean, it's not the best. Amazon, I think, is even 10 times as much, but it's a lot more targeted because people who come to Zazzle know about Zazzle and they like shopping there. And so you have, like, even though you have like less views and people coming, those people are more dedicated and there's more happening with those people. They understand Zazzle. Whereas if you're on Amazon, you're just like looking for anything and it's like such a mishmash of things. And the customers, even though the numbers are bigger when you look at the stats, and even for like Redbubble and Society6, the numbers are higher, but that doesn't mean that those are targeted customers. So that's really important. But 16 million is still a really nice number for you to have as a base for the customers that you can attract or that you can talk to and say, here's my thing that I want you to buy. All right. So the next stat that I want to let you know is that on average, the time that's spent on the Zazzle platform, which is really crazy, is 3 seconds. I think. I think it's 3 seconds. I hope it's not 3 seconds, but that's what I found. And maybe I'm mistaken, but it's just an average anyway, unless it's a shopper, right? So you have, and that's just an industry standard. You have about 3 seconds or less to attract a customer. So when we get into some of the other points, I want to bring back to this point and say that, and I just will mention it here just so that in case I forget, is that you don't have very long to attract that customer. So you better make that thumbnail of your product extremely visible and clear and desirable for that customer to go like, ooh, what's that? Right? And then you've got them. Then there's the hook, and then they can look at your stuff in more detail and for a longer time period. But on average, scroll, 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 ooh, what's that? Right? So we want to make sure that we continue to attract that customer by the things that we do. And this is how you're going to set up your standard operating procedures, right, for your business, which is that, like, these are the things you're going to do before you even get started. You're going to say, every time I make a product, it's got to look really good as a thumbnail, because otherwise, how can I attract that customer? There's a couple other things you can do, but visually, that's what they're doing first. They're shopping by visually looking at the product that they are looking for. And so that's the first key piece in terms of knowing what to do before you start. So you have to already say, I'm going to design things that are visually attractive, and I'm going to make sure it's nice and clear, and so on. So those are things you can already take away from that one stat. And it's really important for you to, and even whether it's 3 minutes or 3 seconds, it doesn't matter. The most important thing is that it's a very, very short time, and the sooner you realize that, the better, because you need to adapt your way that you do your business to that, so that you can actually attract that customer and retain that customer and get them through the journey to adding that to their cart and checking out. All right, so, and then typically a customer looks at 3.5 pages every time that they visit the Zazzle platform. So that means that they'll maybe look at the home page, then maybe they'll click in, and then maybe they'll go to one other page, but a 3.5 on average. So 3 to 4 places where they click when they're on the platform. And so that gives you a lot of opportunity, but it also allows you to understand the buying journey. So more than likely they will come either to the home page, and then from there they'll click on some sort of category that you may have a product within that category that's currently being advertised on the homepage. So that would be a part of your strategy, right? Is to learn how to do that research and to constantly be looking what's on the homepage, and do I have anything that when they click through, they might actually see my product. And that would then allow them to click the second time because they're going to click on a category that's interesting to them, and then they might find your product. So that would be the third click, and then they might actually find some extra things that they might want to buy, and that's beyond this episode. But if you are like in the Zazzle platform already, you know there's something called collections, and so maybe using collections, they'll maybe even find more things that belong to your store that they'll buy in addition to what the one product is that caught their attention. All right, so that gives us a really good feeling that if we did it correctly and we're working with the Zazzle platform to really hone in on what Zazzle is directing traffic towards, then we could actually slip in with our products and be part of that journey that Zazzle's trying to give us anyway, right? They're helping us. They want a sale, we want a sale, and so therefore it could be very possible because that's the customer buying behavior. When they're on the site, they're there for at least 3 to 4 clicks that they visit before they leave. And so I think that's really exciting and a good thing, because that way we can dive into that and slip into that Zazzle buying journey, and make it as effective for that customer to find what they're looking for, and hopefully it's our product, right? Okay, and then the last stat that I'm going to bring up here, because I did the research for you, so I'm giving you a little bonus, is 82% of visitors that come to the Zazzle platform, and we're talking .com here, and it makes sense, obviously, because that's where it's located, although they have international sites all over the world in terms of, they have one place in Ireland where they do fulfillment, and I don't know if they're doing anything else more in New Zealand and Australia, but there are a lot of customers that come from New Zealand and Australia and from Europe, but the majority of people who buy from the Zazzle platform are still in North America, so Canada, Mexico, United States, or even United States in general. And so North America even adds a little bit more to the bottom line. So 82% of visitors come from the US. So you now know who your target audience is, right? So if you're targeting people in the States, then you have to target people in the States. You have to use the same spelling that they use in the States. Like on us from Canada, for example, we had to learn that when we first started on the Zazzle platform, because we used all the Canadian and British spellings for things like favor, or what's another one? Just strange little small differences in spelling make a big difference, because the person that's looking for that product isn't actually using the same spelling. And so also that allowed us to understand that we're targeting an audience that's based in the US. So they have different customs and different holidays that aren't normally something that maybe they have in the UK. Or something that I actually found out was that in Australia, people didn't know what the word s'mores is, whereas in the States, that's a big thing also in Canada. And so just small little differences in terms of cultures and spellings and holidays and sort of occasions that the people celebrate will allow you to really target that US market. And for those who are international sellers that want it, like you're based internationally and that's where you come from and where you live, and you're now trying to target this US audience, you'll have to do a bit of research to make sure that you know how you're targeting that audience, and not assuming that everyone's the same as where you live in terms of your traditions and your occasions that you're going to probably target an audience for. Now you can still use those other countries as a way to target more micro niches, but on the other hand, to get that first customer base so you get the most chance of selling is definitely got to be the US. So that's my tip for you, based on all this research that we've just done. And based on the numbers and the stats. So obviously you're going to keep looking at that research, but this is just a small little tidbit of certain points, and you can really draw from that in order to get that information so that you can really position your store really well when you start out. And maybe if you're not even starting yet and you're already like on the Zazzle platform, maybe now by us going over these statistics, you'll understand, oh shoot, I should have actually more focused more on the US market, or understood a little bit more about how I set up my store so that I can get those 3.5 clicks and make sure I don't have people trying to dig into my store to find out where they can find something, for example. Okay, so that's the end of my point for the research. And obviously, we can keep talking about that, and there's much more that we cover in the Profit by Design Academy coaching program, which is our signature coaching program. And I've got a link for that in the show notes as well, in case you're interested in exploring that a bit more, or just DM me on Instagram or in Facebook, and we can certainly help you and look into more as to whether or not that's the coaching programs for you at this point in your Zazzle journey to success. All right, so point number 2, in terms of what you need to do before you start your Zazzle store, is decide on your brand. And oh my gosh, this is so hard for everyone because they're all going especially even our coaching clients, until they get the help that they need, they come in and they go like, we've tried so many things and we don't seem to know how to nail down the customer that we're targeting. And that's all you're doing with your brand, is you're stating, you're putting your foot in the ground, you're putting your foot down and you're saying, this is what I'm going to offer you, right? And the fact that you have to make a decision and narrow it down is hard because Zazzle is an incredible marketplace. Thousands of products, every niche possible. There's no limit in terms of where you can go and what you can target. And so, that's like a kid in the candy store. And you're like, I don't know. But the main thing is to set your brand up in such a way that it expands with when you develop your abilities on the Zazzle marketplace. And so if you create more of a generic brand that, like, in terms of your name of your store and in terms of your logo and how you position yourself more as maybe a designer or as someone who has a certain style, then that's going to be so much better for you moving forward than if you right away say, well, I'm a shoe store, or I only sell cell phone cases, or something like that, or I'm only doing goth. But sometimes with the design specifics like goth or rustic or whatever, you can actually build out a very successful store if that's your thing, right? And you're targeting that audience and you make sure that the audience is broad enough and also on the Zazzle platform for you to be able to actually get the volume of sales that you want. But if you're open to suggestions and amenable to starting with something that you want to bring to the Zazzle marketplace, but you might also be open to some other pieces that you hadn't thought of in terms of serving a customer for occasions or for fabrics or patterns or let's see, like artwork. Obviously, not some of you actually start out coming into the Zazzle platform to sell your artwork, which is awesome. I do the same, and I also have my photography up there. But the idea here is think about what you want as a brand, and that can be anything you want. And that's the hard part because it's not always that easy to make that decision. But even if you change your branding message later, the most important thing is to keep your store name relatively generic, but still useful, unique and interesting, so that it can develop into whatever it is that you do as you develop on the Zazzle platform. And the reason I'm like talking about this is it's happened so many times with our coaching clients. They start with one thing, they go like, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to do this. And then they get so involved in the Zazzle platform and see how versatile the tool is and how much fun they're having with going into some other areas. And they go like, my brand doesn't just fit there anymore. I have so many other things. And so by giving you this advice of deciding on what your brand is, but making sure that it allows you to expand, that's my biggest key takeaway for this point, so that you can really not have to go back and fix things or start another store or whatever, because that's just wasting your time and you're going to set back rather than keep moving forward in your Zazzle journey. All right, but once you do decide on that brand, and I did go a little bit off on that, I gave you a lot more information than I had in my notes, but the key here is that branding message has to be really loud and clear. And even if it's a generic branding, it still needs to have a really good logo, and you have to explain what you offer and what you're all about, and so that people can say, oh yeah, that's exactly I resonate with that because that's what you're doing. You're trying to build a brand that has the ability to help your customer know you, like you, and trust you. And so by thinking about all this before you start your Zazzle store is going to give you so much power later because uh, things are just going to click rather than it being a struggle and you won't know what it is that is the struggle, except I know what it is. It's the branding. Okay, and so the one thing I'm going to give you as a link as well in this set of show notes is the link to something called TESS, TESS, which is just a really fancy, like short norm acronym for the site that the U.S. Government has to allow you to search for trademarked and copyrighted items. So it's a really great way to as soon as you decide on your brand and your store name, it's a really great way for you to double check to make sure you're not in a copyright violation, that someone else hasn't already registered the name that you want to go with. Because this isn't just a little tiny store and username on the Zazzle platform. This is your brand. This is your store. This is what you're going to call your Instagram account, your Pinterest account, your Facebook account. It's going to be your brand. Think big. Think like Kate Spade or Disney, because that's actually what you're doing. You're on the same platform as some of these really big trademark names, and you want to stand out. You don't just want to be like John 123, or I love cats, when you're really not. Like, that's just because you like cats, but you're not really selling cats. And so your store name and your username just doesn't, like, for your store, doesn't match. So this is the point in time where you have to make that decision and make it a good decision. All right, and once you've checked to make sure there's no copyright issues, then you're all set to go, and you can start not only naming your, like, setting up that store and using that name, but also starting on the branding and logo and colors and what you stand for and what you're going to sell. Excuse me. Okay, so and then we get to point number 3. And this is really, really important because I want you to decide who you're going to serve as customer. Some people say, oh, you've got to decide on your customer avatar, and we do that exercise in the Profit by Design Academy coaching program. But just in general, just who are you going to target, right? What is it that you're going to use the Zazzle platform for to serve your customer? And so people forget that if they're selling products and there's no interaction, especially on Zazzle. Zazzle takes care of everything in terms of fulfillment and customer service and customer billing, which makes it such a great platform, by the way. But we still have to remember that even though we don't have that interaction with the customer, we need to know who that customer is, and we need to know how to serve them. And if we don't know how to serve them, guess what? There's no sales. And so that makes it even a little bit tougher for us because we don't have that interaction. We can't hear the customer say, this is what I want. And so we have to guess, but guessing is not the best way to do that. We go back to point number 1, which is research. And so you can actually do more research on your specific niche that you've decided to hone in on and be the dominant in that. That's always what we recommend anyway, is that you pick one thing first and just really do a good job so that you can be successful in that, and then you can expand into another niche or something like that. So, some people like to say, okay, I'm going to work on selling my artwork, or I'm going to, work on occasions, or I'm going to work only on weddings, or I'm just doing everything but occasions. I'm doing all the wonderful things that Zazzle has that are you don't actually think about too much, but things that are everyday items. So whatever it is, or business, anything you want that you can hone in on to sort of grab a piece of the market share on Zazzle is what you're going to use as a way to define who your customer is, right? So for example, if the customer were someone who was in their 20s to 30s, who had some kids and they have interests in parties and clothing for their kids and decorating their kids' rooms and so on, and then the kids can start going to school, then you already know exactly what kind of products you're going to offer on the Zazzle marketplace, because you're going to target that particular customer, so that they have all those things that they can like use your products to do the things that they have to do in their life cycle. And I think that's really important for, and then also remember you're giving them a service, and even though they're buying the product, you are serving them by making their life easier or happier. And because you're doing that, that allows you to have a completely different approach to how do I make products and what products do I make. Because on the Zazzle platform, what happens is there's blank products, and if you're not familiar with that yet, I'm going to walk you through it. But there's just basically a whole bunch of blank products, and it's up to you to add a certain design on it to make it the final product, right? Because they're products already, but they're blanks. And then the customer will buy the blank with your design on it. And the reason that they want to buy that and they want to pay extra for it or pay you for it is because you have added value to the blank, right? Because they could buy the blank and add their own, but the reason that they're buying yours when they do buy it is because you've added value by adding your design on it. And that could be like a text design, it could be a pattern, it could be your artwork, it could be a photography, it can be a graphic design, a pattern. It doesn't matter. It's just a matter of how you took your creativity and added to the product that would have otherwise been a blank that they would have had to work with. And so by allowing yourself to immerse in that customer's like world, right? What do they need? What is their thing that they're working on and they're coming to Zazzle for to get? And if you can find that out and learn from that, like let's say they're a bride and they want to have a wedding invitation, at that point you have to then research what's trending right now in the wedding space. What fonts, what colors, what designs. Do they want eucalyptus? Do they want glitter? Do they want, snow? Do they want like is it a summer wedding, a winter wedding? Is it, and those types of things are then how you're starting to target your customer. And by asking those questions and getting those answers, then it'll actually automatically tell you how and what you need to design in order to target that customer. And so this is really important when you start your store, if that's what you want to do in terms of dealing and working with the Zazzle customer. And I'm going to just review this here, and then I'm going to give you a little bonus afterwards to help you understand exactly what else you could do on that Zazzle platform if you're new and just starting your store. Okay, so the most important is to have, in order to get going and have a successful Zazzle journey and start it out right, is before you open up your Zazzle store, do the research. And we've done some research with you here, but there's more to do, and just find out what those customers want and find out what's selling on the Zazzle marketplace, etc., etc. All right, the second thing is to decide on your brand and then to really make it clearly, have the processes in place to make sure that that messaging with your brand is actually executed when you start opening up your Zazzle store. And the Zazzle platform gives you this opportunity by having your homepage set up properly, and that's where your branding message really stands out. And then the third point is to decide on your target customer. You can't just be a something for everyone. It's not going to work. You're going to stretch yourself too thin, and unless you target a specific area initially, you're never going to get a foothold. Zazzle is a big marketplace, and unless you really dive in and give it your best and give it a good shot and do that research and post enough products that will ultimately grab a foothold in that marketplace, you're stretching yourself too thin if you just try to do something on every area and every niche that Zazzle sells in. And so that's a piece of advice I'd like to give you to make sure that you get started quickly and as quickly as possible by honing in rather than expanding out. All right, so I promised you that bonus, and I'm going to give it to you here. If you are a person who already has traffic coming from something that you do, like a blog, or you have, like, you're known for your artwork, then you have an advantage over others on the Zazzle marketplace who are just coming in because they realized, oh, I'm going to try this. I'm not even creative. I'm just going to do this. So if you're already like known for something, then it's going to be very easy because your brand will be you, and your brand will be your name, or your brand will be your name plus fine art or something like that. And if you have a blog or a website where you have a lot of traffic that comes to your site, your opportunity to sell and merchandise whatever you have is already branded is amazing, because you're going to be able to drive that traffic from your website externally to the Zazzle platform, to your Zazzle store, and it's going to generate not only the royalty income, which is all what we've been talking about here, is how to make sales, which means that you'll get a royalty based on what you set it at. We suggest 10%, but you can do it higher, anywhere from 5 to 99%. And then the idea is that by driving that traffic from your external site to your Zazzle store, you can make an extra 35% in referral fees. So all of a sudden, you can make somewhere between, well, instead of 10%, you can make something like 45 or more, and that's going to really change the outlook and success that you get initially if you can already add the referral income as part of your income that you get in, and Zazzle pays you out every month. So that's my extra bonus for you. If you want to have more of discussion on that as to how that all works, then the right place is to message us, and we can talk and see how this can happen for you and how you can take advantage of the Zazzle platform so that you can earn more money. All right, so thanks so much for listening and watching if you're watching this on YouTube, and thanks so much for listening if you're on any of your favorite podcast platforms, and we will see you again next week. Take care.